Welcome to our lunchtime learning webinars. These webinars are actually designed to provide one-on-one small group discussions on topics that we believe are really critical and value added to our faculty and students. So welcome to our February 28th one, the last day in February. I am so excited to have Dr. Claudia Rankins with us. She is a partner of UDC. And so she's going to make herself available and tell you more about actually what is going on. So Dr. Claudia Rankins is a senior research associate for PRISSEM Academic Services, LLC, where she conducts faculty development and research development consulting activities specifically aimed towards faculty at HBCUs and pursuing National Science Foundation funding in STEM and STEM education fields. She recently retired from the National Science Foundation, so she has a plethora of information and insight perspective of what we need to do as a university to do that. And without further ado, Dr. Rankins, I'm going to turn that over to you, and then I will come back at the question and answer period.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. So since it's a small group, I thought maybe we could start out by you telling me, I see your name, but if you would just tell me briefly, maybe your academic rank and your department you're associated with, or your position at UDC. So Suzette, would you mind sharing?
Sure, I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Ravi Chinta. I'm Associate Dean, and I also hold a faculty rank in the Department of Management.
Okay.
In the School of Business and Public Administration.
Thank you. Thank you. Who would go next? Suzette? And give us your whole name, please, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
Oh, I think she said she's driving. So,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. She's staff here at the university and just listening in while she's driving to her location. And so, Suzette, please be safe as you are driving and listening to our presentation today.
Yes, and thank you for not responding, Suzette. Howard, would you share a little bit about yourself? Hope he's not driving as well. And then Lauren Smithen joined us. Lauren,
yes.
Tell us. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am an adjunct professor at the community college in the humanities department, and I teach political science courses.
Great, wonderful. Before I just talk and go off on tangents, and nothing applies to anybody who is on this call, I just thought I'd ask you those few questions. So Howard, if you're inclined to share, please do so. If not, I just continue then with my presentation. Okay, all right. So just wanted you, before I go to my next slide, briefly let you know who you're dealing with. So thank you, Dr. Reed, for introducing me. I actually work for my son, who founded this company, PRISSEM Academic Services, in 2005. And our sole goal is really to work with HBCU STEM faculty and help them thrive. So whatever we can do for you, we're here for you. Mostly, of course, our expertise lies in helping you develop proposals for the National Science Foundation, but we can go beyond that if you wish. So we do have, I'm happy to say, a contract with UDC to do this kind of work. So we can offer one-on-one conversations with you. just email me. You see my email address, crankins@prism.com. Email me if you'd like to set up an appointment for just sort of a first discussion on what it is you would like to do, you have in mind, your goals. We can develop some strategies if you want to develop a proposal. We also have weekly informal writing sessions. If you're we just, like a bunch of faculty, we just sit in front of the computer and write for 1 hour and encourage each other to find time to write proposals, write papers, write op-eds, write whatever it is that's on your mind. Last week somebody was working on writing her application for tenure and promotion. So whatever you need time for to write, we're just there to encourage you to do that. We also are happy to give you feedback on any proposal you might be writing. All we ask is that you don't send us your proposal like the week before it's due. That wouldn't give us much time to give you valuable feedback. So hopefully we can have these one-on-one conversations periodically and talk about your proposal or whatever it is you're writing that you'd like to have feedback from. So I hope you find this helpful, and I hope you contact me. All right, so as you think about writing proposals, as you think about writing in general, I just always start out my talks with this quote by Dr. Montgomery, who talks about, if you really are thinking about what's most impactful and unique to your work as a scholar, and not so much sometimes what the institution wants us to do. They send us, here's a funding opportunity, go after it. But is it something that really is a priority to you and your life and your research and what you want to do and where you want to go? So along those lines, I just wanted to sort of a little bit have some thoughts for you to make sure that grants work for you and not the other way around. So when you go after research funding, sort of think about where you want to be in a few years, where you see your career going, and how you would get there, and how a grant can help you achieve your goals. So for example, if you really are just much more interested, rather than doing bench research, in working with your students or having some scholarship support for your students, or having a summer program for middle school children, whatever it is that that excites you about your work, there is a grant out there that can help you achieve it. And so prioritize those funding opportunities that get you towards your goal, because sometimes I talk to faculty and they tell me how they're going to submit 5 or 6 different proposals. And that's just sort of not how you're going to get there. This path of getting funding for whatever it is you would like to have funding for requires patience. It's not something that happens overnight. It probably takes a year before you have the funds in place. And so sort of take it one step at a time. And maybe you can tell me a little bit more in a minute before we go on about what those funding opportunities might be that would fit into your goals, or what kind of things would interest you. Is it research? Is it curriculum reform? Is it working with your students? And so we want you to know that your interests outside of what we typically consider science are valid and valuable too. So if your interests lie in working with your students, there is science in that, and the National Science Foundation has something for you as well. So you don't have to write this in the chat. We already talked about your academic rank and position and your discipline. I didn't know how many people would be on this call or how few people. So if you would share with me really briefly if you're even interested in a grant opportunity, and if yes, what kind? Is it research? Is it education research? Is it student support? Is it support for teaching your curriculum? Do you want to maybe conduct a workshop or conference, because NSF funds that too? Either tell me a little bit about that, or if you're more comfortable, put it in the chat. So Lauren, I'm going to put you on the spot. As an adjunct, we typically don't write grant proposals, but we could. Is there something you would be interested in pursuing?
Thank you. I just wrote in the chat too. I don't have a specific interest. I just would like to see if there's somehow an opportunity to work with a political scientist who has done this kind of work. So I wouldn't be proposing a grant necessarily, but maybe providing support with that.
I see. So you'd like to be part of a team. And,
Yes.
and you are specifically in political science?
Yes.
Okay, so there are lots of people at your institution and others writing research grants. They're writing big grants, maybe even for center proposals. And they always call for either a social scientist or political scientist or education researcher to be part of the team, because you bring a perspective to these bigger grants that nobody else does. So let me think about it. Who at UDC, you could connect with to do some of that work?
That would be great. I am welcoming any kind of advice or suggestions.
Okay, which is not to say that you cannot be a PI yourself, okay? You are eligible to write a research proposal, and NSF does have a program in political science, but and there's some other opportunities I'll point you to that you could possibly consider, okay? Anyone else who maybe would like to share what it is you're particularly interested in? Let me see if anybody put anything in the chat. No, no one else? Okay. Feel free, if you think about it, feel free to still share in the chat. Okay. So I have more slides than I'm going to talk about, so I'll skip a couple of things. But just basically about the National Science Foundation, it is the largest funder of research support across all non-medical field in science and engineering, with an $8.8 billion budget in STEM research and education and human resource activities. And they make about 12,000 new awards annually. And so keep that amount, 8.8 billion, in mind when I briefly show you the next slide. How much of that $8.8 billion goes to the nation's 101 HBCUs? Annually, about 100 million. So that's like just such a negligible part of it. And for research funding, it's between like 30 and 40 million. So the whole budget is 8.8 billion. The top funded institutions get $100 to $150 million a year, yet all 101 HBCUs combined get 100 million a year. So it's sort of my goal in life to do a little something about that, to see that a little bit more of that funding does go to HBCUs. So I just thought I'd share that. So how do you get started? First of all, find the NSF program that's most suited to your interest. So I'm going to show you the program I worked for at NSF called the Historically Black Colleges and Universities Program, just to show you what an NSF website looks like. So on the website, you have the guidelines, you have sort of a synopsis of what the program offers. You have upcoming due dates, very important. You have the names of the program officers, and we'll talk a little bit about how to contact them. And then also at the very bottom, you have a list of projects that are funded by that program. So for example, I'll take Lauren. If you ever did apply for an individual investigator project in the political science program, you could look up the political science, look at their website, go to what's been funded and see the kind of proposals that have been funded, but you could also see typically how much money they award. After you find the program, then you read carefully the solicitation and or the program page, and you peruse what's been funded by the program. You familiarize yourself with this following document: the Proposals and Award Policies and Procedures Guide. And this document, I'm just going to show you a few things. First of all, they show you always, it has a new one every year, what's been updated. So if you've read the previous year's PAPPG, then you really just have to look at the updates, like what has changed. But going down a little bit further, when you're writing your proposal, pre-submission information, and I know this is fairly small, but it gives you step-by-step procedures for how to prepare the proposal. It goes into great detail. For example, I'm looking at the budget. It tells you in the budget, for example, that alcoholic beverages are not an allowable cost, or that if meals and coffee breaks are allowed, if you can use your home office workspace and write it into an NSF proposal, what kind of entertainment you can provide with an NSF proposal. It goes in great detail and leaves no question unanswered. So any question you may have about preparing your proposal, and later if you have an award, how to manage your award, is in that PAPPG. And so once you formulate an idea for a proposal, you should get in touch with a program officer, send them an email, follow up if nobody answers your email. Typically, I would not advise you to send out what I call a mass email. So some programs may have 10 program officers listed, but it wouldn't be good to send one email and have all 10 of them, address it to all 10 of them. That's sort of a sure way of getting no response, because everybody will think the other person has responded. So just email one person at a time and be specific in what you're asking for. Is it advice on an idea you want to submit? Do you want feedback on like a small concept paper or one pager you wrote? If you're looking for procedural advice, be sure to first look in the PAPG. Like, don't ask the program officer, what's the due date for your program? That's on the website. Or don't ask, anything that's spelled out in the PAPG, because all they're going to say to you is it's in the PAPG and you should have read that and not contacted me. So be specific to get feedback from the program officer. Now realize that they will not tell you, oh, this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. All they can really tell you is, yeah, that's an idea that fits into NSF's portfolio. So they're not judging your idea. The reviewers will do that. And if anybody is interested in serving on a panel or being a reviewer for NSF, send your CV to a program officer and tell them that you are interested in serving on a panel. Now, when should you contact the program officer, and when do you have to contact the program officer? So if you're responding to a solicitation where everything is clearly spelled out and described, like, for example, this solicitation called STEM, it's a scholarship program. Everything is clearly described. You don't need to contact a program director, just adhere to the guidelines. NSF has a program called HBCU Excellence in Research. And I heard from program officers that they are not getting a sufficient number of proposals from HBCU PIs. So if you have colleagues who are not on this call today, who are looking to submit a research proposal, Dr. Chinta, maybe tell your faculty as Associate Dean to submit to Excellence in Research. Okay, solicitation 20-542. The due dates are sometime in October, so there is time to do that. This is a program that actually is funded sufficiently to fund a good number of proposals. Pretty much proposals ruled competitive are likely to be funded. And thank you for your answer, because there are opportunities for faculty in business and management, especially for those faculty that might also be linked in information science or whatever research endeavors. So there's a whole division of economic sciences. So if they submit to Excellence in Research, where you can submit any NSF funded research to that program, point your colleagues to me if they're interested in it. They should definitely contact the program officer. Now, this document we just looked at called PAPPG lists a number of sort of specialty proposals, planning proposals, conference proposals, proposals for equipment, and others. And they now require a concept outline to the program director. So that's like a new requirement. You should also contact your program director if you're not really sure if your program is a fit for this program or that program, or across maybe two different programs, if it's sort of interdisciplinary. And really, anytime you want to submit a research proposal, it's just a great idea to contact the program officer and let them know who you are so they get to know you. So this idea of the concept outline is fairly new. I mean, we used to tell PIs, prepare a one-pager with your idea, but now the PAPPG actually tells you what should be in that concept outline. So your name and where you're going to submit to, should have a project title, some keywords, a brief narrative description of your idea. And the main thing is that the program officer becomes aware that you are planning on submitting a proposal. So in some types of proposals, it is then also required that you upload the email you get from the program officer in your proposal to document that this exchange has taken place. All righty. So, and sort of remember that, whoops, program directors are your peers. Program directors at NSF are like faculty at institutions. And as a matter of fact, most program directors either are still faculty or were. When I say are still faculty, many program directors and research directorates are on loan from NSF. So they spent a year or two or maybe even 3 at NSF, and then return to their home institutions. So they really are your peers. They're there to help you, to answer your questions. They're not people to be feared or people to be avoided. They're people to get to know, because half of the battle getting funded is getting to know your program director and having them know who you are. All righty. So actually have a document, and Dr. Reed, I can share that with you, that we've prepared with some funding opportunities. We grouped it into 3 areas: disciplinary research and research infrastructure, STEM education research, understanding and improving implementation in STEM education. I don't want to send that document to anyone until tomorrow or the next day, because some key NSF programs just had new solicitations come out that are not available yet. So there's some new deadlines for the HBCU UP program, for the Centers of Research in Excellence in Science and Technology, and some others. So I want to make sure I can update my handout with the new deadlines and solicitations. So I can send it to you by Thursday, and Dr. Reed, same with you. I can send it, and you can post it if you wish on the website. So I'll just briefly go through some selected funding opportunities for faculty as pathways into NSF. The HBCU, so there are 2 programs for HBCU faculty only. One is the HBCU undergraduate program, which actually has a number of different types of funding opportunities. So in there are funding opportunities if you're interested in doing curriculum reform. There are funding opportunities for sort of institutional transformation. There are funding opportunities for education research or research into broadening participation. But there also is this one track called Research Initiation Award. And it supports faculty researchers without prior research awards or without recent research awards. So if you're someone who is just sort of getting into research into NSF, this would be the first proposal as a research proposal you would submit. Now, there are only 2 per institution that can be submitted every year, and you can submit research in all areas that NSF funds. So from political science to math, to physics, to engineering, to the other social sciences, to a number of things in economics, computer information systems, and so forth, as well as STEM education or broadening participation research. A similar program, because it's for all HBCU faculty and goes across all areas of NSF funded research, is that Excellence in Research program I told you about. The advantage of that program is there is no limit on how many faculty can submit, as well as a sizable budget. That you didn't hear that from me, I heard it through the grapevine, that NSF even has trouble spending this year. So they did not get enough competitive proposals. So please share with your faculty, share with your colleagues who are interested in submitting a research proposal that the HBCU Excellence in Research at NSF is a great program to submit to. And again, if you know of anyone, Dr. Reed, anyone else on this call, if you know of any faculty, please send them our way. We would love to work with somebody getting an excellence in research proposal together. Those are also due in early October, so there would be time to still develop a proposal. I'm going to skip over these because no one on this call has identified as being in either math, computer science, or engineering. But again, each of those divisions has sort of an entry-level program for faculty who have not had prior research funding. Similarly in biology. If you know of any faculty who are at the mid-career level, associate professor or equivalent, 5 directorates accept proposals that build on your current research or to acquire new research skills. They sort of take into account that you're submitting to mid-career advancement because you haven't been funded in a while. Maybe you've been an administrator and have been not part of sort of that whole research enterprise and you want to get back into it. I think one of the directorates now, I don't remember quite which one, also allows for full professors to do mid-career advancement. So look for details at the solicitation. Again, if you know of someone, oftentimes faculty serve as department chairs, serve maybe as associate deans, associate provosts, and then decide to get back into the faculty ranks. But then how do you get your research going again? So this mid-career is great. I was hoping for the career awards that we would have someone join us from UDC. She had actually registered for this, but then probably got really, really busy. Who received a career award last year. So these are for assistant professors who are untenured or in an equivalent position. And actually, this UDC faculty member, Afia Frederick from the School of Education, received one of the largest career awards that has ever been made to an HBCU faculty. By largest, I mean in terms of the amount of funding she got. So very proud that she accomplished that. And I wondered if she had been, I would have had her speak a little bit to the things we offer. She comes to our writing sessions. We have one-on-one conversations with her, even though she is awarded now, to help her with next steps and so forth. UDC is considered a predominantly undergraduate institution, I believe. And so you could look at the solicitation, facilitating research at PUIs. That's really a regular research proposal where faculty from predominantly undergraduate institutions get a few extra pages to describe their unique circumstances, like their larger teaching loads, or the fact that they may be adjuncts and not full-time faculty, those kind of things. If you're interested in student and education specific funding opportunities, there certainly are some programs at NSF. There's one called Improving Undergraduate STEM Education. So you can write a proposal for novel, creative, and transformative approaches in teaching. There's a scholarship program, provide scholarships to enable low-income students. They just lifted the amount from $10,000 to $15,000 a year per student. So it still doesn't cover all of the expenses, but having a $15,000 scholarship is not bad to help you go through undergraduate school, and it does support students for 4 years. Research experiences for undergraduates, if you want to provide summer research opportunities to students, is also an opportunity. And then I think I talked a little bit about the fact that through the HBCU Up program, there is a track that deals with curriculum development, new teaching approaches. Also those things like if you need to have new equipment in your labs, update your, say, your chemistry labs, or if you're in political science and you want to have a lab for your students to work in, like a computer lab or something like that, you can write a proposal for that. And there are 2 programs for those of you who may be interested in STEM education research. One called the EHR Core Research, and the other one, Building Capacity in STEM Education Research, which is really for faculty who are not STEM education researchers, but are interested in becoming STEM education researchers. So there's a program that actually sort of lets you acquire the requisite skills to do that kind of research. All right, and then we don't always think of NSF as funding, say, just proposals for equipment or conference or workshop proposals. So particularly if you are thinking about having a small workshop, having a conference in your department, in your school, they like those conference proposals to be under $100,000. But I mean, that's not bad for getting some assistance to have conferences or workshops. And if you're interested in the other opportunities, just ask me about it during the chat. If you want to know what an EGO or rapid or race proposal is, I'd be happy to explain it. And for those kind of proposals, you do need to submit that concept outline that I talked about. So let me go back. I did put in some extra slides just in case we don't have any questions, but I wouldn't mind if you did have some questions, be happy to answer them. So you can put any questions you have in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. And your question can be about anything I talked about or anything I didn't talk about. So feel free to ask me anything that's on your mind.
Dr. Rankins, can we stop sharing your slides so we can open it up to everybody?
Yes.
And then we can pull
Yes.
the screens back, okay?
Yeah, that's a little bit better like this, then I can maybe see people. So don't everybody ask at the same time, but please do ask your questions.
You know, and I guess one of the questions that I have is, that everyone's talks about how to get started. And I think you did touch on some of it as a part of your presentation. But is there, I guess, a secret sauce? And if I haven't really been doing or written a grant before, where do I start? And I know now that we have a partnership with you all, contract, that would be a way. But how do we get faculty engaged in, actually thinking about it's not so hard to do a proposal?
Let me share my personal experience. I got my PhD sort of later in life, right? And I was like around 45. And the day after I got my PhD, my department chair approached me and said, here's a funding opportunity. I want you to go after that. You have a PhD now and you need to get going. And not everybody has a department chair like that, who researches the funding opportunity. That's just perfect and brings it to you. But even though at that, I was scared to death. Like, what do I do? Where do I even start? Where do I look? How do I do this? How do I write this proposal? How do I submit it? So it really starts with, I think, thinking about what is it you want to do? What would you like to have funding for? What would you like to find out more about? And research can be then connected to everything. You know, it could be you just want to teach in a different way, but you don't have the funds to get the equipment that may be needed to do that, or setting up your classrooms a different way. Maybe you want to flip your classrooms. So have that idea. And then, I mean, in this case, yes, do talk to us, because we may know what these next steps are. But in your mind, it has to be clear to you what it is you want to do. It can't be sort of forced upon you, right? I mean, and it is scary, but we're here to take that scary part out of the equation. So if you could share that with other faculty, you know, please
You
do.
know, you make a very good point that I think sometimes people miss, is that it's okay to go asking for funding for something that I want to do, I'm interested in, not something that is forced upon me to do it because it seems like this is what we should be doing, versus what I really have interest in that could be value added to others or to my students or to my university. So I think that's a really good point that sometimes people miss.
Yeah, yeah. And if it makes you a better teacher, professor, then it benefits everybody. It benefits your students and it benefits your university in the long run. And you do not, for NSF, you do not have to be traditional faculty to apply for research funding. You can be an administrator, you can be adjunct faculty, staff, even. It all depends on, right? So if you have an idea, just have that one-on-one with me. Encourage Dr. Reed, encourage other faculty to do that one-on-one, and then we can sort of talk about it if it's worth pursuing NSF or someone else.
Well, you know, and I will do that, because I think when you said administrators, adjunct staff, I have to say as an administrator and staff, and even, you know, just think that that's in NSF is not for us, you know, because it's just that's just a perception that it's for faculty. But, you know, thank you for sharing that. And I will send that out to the faculty to let them know that, you know, that you all are available, and, you know, to actually have that one-on-one conversation.
Because, I mean, even in your case, working with faculty development, if NSF funds conferences and workshops, you may be interested in funding something like that, you know? Yeah.
Any other questions? This is the opportunity to do that in this forum. But again, this forum is not the only forum that we now have available to us. And again, we have a contract with PRISSEM to ensure that this one-on-one guidance is available to our faculty to continue. As you know, we go on the road to R2, that we have people that are contributing and engaging in the research effort, but not from, you have to do it all by yourself. So
exactly. And not just a few people at the institution, right? And then that's the other thing, that few people are funded and are funded really well, and they're the ones sort of everybody focuses on and goes to, and they get all of the awards and all of the accolades. But there's so many other faculty who could really do the same thing. So you know, Ravi, if you want me to talk specifically to your faculty at one point, if there are faculty who particularly could do research that is NSF related. And they're just, when you look at the Directorate of Social Science, Social Behavioral and Economic Sciences, there's so many programs that we don't think of as NSF. We think of NSF as engineering and math and computer science. And then what Lauren sort of talked about, collaborations. right? Bringing in people that we would typically maybe not bring in. And think of the community college faculty, particularly, and the adjunct faculty. We now are going to this model at institutions where we rely less on the traditional faculty, but more on adjuncts to bring them in as that kind of product, you know. So yeah, there's a lot we can do.
Well, you know, and again, you know, you're bringing up all kind of little light bulbs for me is that, you know, thank you, Lauren, for sharing, you know, from the community college. And I think we don't, and again, that's just my opinion, we don't really reach out to our community college colleagues, and we're all one university, to have these, you know, workshops more available to them specifically, so that they understand that it's not just the flagship, but also you know, reaching across the university with these ideas to do these research projects. So I think we just need to continue to educate our population, and that it's not one track, but it can be several different tracks that we can go to forward in that direction.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to just do something like this for the community college faculty if there's interest. So,
Lauren, do you think that would be something that would be beneficial for the community college? I don't know if she's not listening. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, if I don't see any other questions, but we know that Dr. Rankins is not far away. She's, you know, right close and personal with us via email. I think that's your best way to do that. So I want to think I want to thank everyone who did come. I hope that I always learn something new and different each time I have this opportunity. And again, if okay, Howard's from an adjunct at the CC. So
Okay.
I think, thank you, Howard, for sharing that with us. So I just want to say thank you all so much. Again, we want your ideas of what you would like to see as presenters. It's just a matter of, you know, finding them and bringing them to our university. Dr. Rankins, again, I cannot begin to thank you for your contributions and what you're doing to help us move our research along. So I just want to thank everyone. And if there's no other questions, I'm going to give you eight minutes back into your day. But thank you again, and everyone have a wonderful day, and we will see you at our next Lunch and Learn webinar.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.